Welcome everybody to another episode of the Third Hour of Power. This is Grady of This Mormon Life, and this week I am joined by our friend Heather of LDS Youth Leadership. Heather, how's it going tonight?
Great, Grady, and it's really so much fun to be back and be on the podcast with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too. And especially because this is for me a super awesome lesson as far as the timing of when it was scheduled. Hopefully your class or quorum is on pace, because this is a great lead-in episode for General Conference. In fact, my little timer here on LDS.org tells me that conference is 1 day and 5 hours away, I think. So we're getting there pretty fast. So we're pretty excited. But this lesson is number 19 from the Gordon B. Hinckley Manual, and it is entitled Priesthood Leadership in the Church of Jesus Christ. Heather, I'll let you lead off. I'm sure that you've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. What was something that stood out to you from the lesson?
You know, the first thing that I noticed that the things that they talked about that happen as someone is prepared or refined to become a prophet, and also how we counsel together, I saw patterns that apply to the brethren that apply to us too. And so how a man goes through a refining process, he has experiences that prepare him to be the prophet. And I got thinking about that, and I thought, well, isn't that what our lives are like too? We're not all preparing to become a prophet, right? But we have experiences that refine us and prepare us. But this is what there are a couple things President Hinckley said about it that I really liked. Each man came to the presidency after many years of experience as a member of the Council of the 12 and in other capacities. The Lord refined and polished each one. Let him know discouragement, failure, illness, and in some cases, deep sorrow. All of this became part of a great refining process, and the effect of that process has become beautifully evident in their lives. And then a little later, he goes on and he says, it is a long course of preparation in which he comes to know the Latter-day Saints wherever they may be, and they come to know him. So I first said, I see this as a pattern in our own lives, but as I just read this part, in which he comes to know the Latter-day Saints wherever they may be. And as I read that, the next thing I thought was, well, the Savior suffered. He experienced everything that we would experience in our lives so that he would know us too. And well, so now we've got what, 3 patterns here?
Yeah.
How the Savior comes to know us, how the prophet prepares to lead and comes to understand us by having his own experiences of refinement, and then how we are prepared for different things in our own lives. And you know, it can be a horribly trite thing to say when someone experiences a tragedy or something difficult in their lives. It can be really awful to say everything happens for a reason. Because as I read this, huh?
So no one likes to hear that in the moment.
No, it doesn't feel very good. But the other side of that is that we can choose to find meaning in the experiences that we have. I know before I served as a young women president, when I was 2.5 years ago. Gosh, no, I was called 5 years ago on Mother's Day once. I look back and I see callings that prepared me for it. I was a war camp specialist twice. I was a primary president, and I was so green. I'd never served in a presidency before. But I think I learned a lot of things that helped me be a much better president when I was young. I was a Relief Society instructor, and that was where I learned to choose those 1 or 2 things from the lesson to prepare to teach. Pick the most important thing, then pick 2 other things. Focus on the most important thing. If you have time for the others, great. If not, when the lesson ends, it ends.
Yeah.
And that prepared me to teach Come Follow Me, because that's exactly how they want us to do it.
Yeah, you pick the things that your class needs and focus in on that. Or the hard thing is you actually prepare all of it, and you just let the spirit and the discussion take you. That's the hard one right there. I've had that before where like there's so much good stuff. And I'm like, no, this part is not important. We can skip it. I had it last Sunday I taught, and I had to skip a video. And it was a really good video. But I'm like, no, this part is more important for us to focus in on right now. And I had to leave it behind. So it was hard. But
but we can.
I think it's funny too. People always, oh, the prophets are out of touch. They're all old men, and but they're men that have lived lives of experience. I love when President Hinckley was actually doing his 60 Minutes interview, and that same question was posed to him. He's like, "It's wonderful, isn't it? These men have been through so much, and now they know how to help people."
Right. And I know that the experiences I've had, sometimes they prepare me to just simply have empathy and compassion for someone else. And that matters so much, I think, in this difficult world we live in.
Yeah, I've been in an elders quorum presidency, and I've been in charge of home teaching. And you know what? Now, as a home teacher, I take care to make sure I report my home teaching and that I do it, and that I give them plenty of notes and say, here's everything that I'm talking with this family about, or my thoughts and impressions. It's not just I ignore the home teaching supervisor until he tracks me down in the hallway and makes me give my report for some weird reason. People do that. And I've been through that, and I empathize now, and I'm like, you know what? This brother in my ward is trying to do his calling. The least I can do is respond. Whether that's a good response or a bad response, at least I need to respond and let him know.
Yes, I think sometimes people avoid the visiting teaching coordinator or, someone contacting for home teaching reports because they might be a little embarrassed because they didn't do as well as they'd hoped. It happens, doesn't it? None of us are perfect. And I think it's okay to be honest and say, you know what, I didn't do it. Or I contacted them several times and didn't have any luck.
Yeah, here's what happened. Here's the efforts I made. Or, you know what, I didn't help me. What can I do? Because for some reason I can't do this, or this is hard. And that's where you have a really good home teaching supervisor or visiting teaching coordinator that can say, let's talk about it together, and is on top of things. Not just being reactive of like, well, it's already the 15th of the next month, so moving on. I had one time I had a home teaching supervisor, and every time I would give him a negative report, he'd go, all right, that's fine. It's probably hard. Like, that's not what I needed. I needed you to hold me accountable and say that this is what the Lord needs, but you made it so easy for me to not do it. And so it was really hard for me. The lesson goes on and talks about sometimes not only succession, but when a prophet is ill. I think we've been pretty familiar with the succession part. It's been talked a lot about in General Conference, just the idea that it's the senior apostle that takes over as a president of the church. And it's such a neat thing because there is no, jockeying for position. There's no political play of, hey, this person is actually, from this area of the world. President Uchtdorf is really charismatic, and he's from Germany. How cool would it be to have our next president of the church be German? And that's not how it works. The next president of the church, unless someone passes away first, is going to be President Nelson. And we just know that. And there's some comfort in that. But one of the things that happened a lot to President Hinckley when he was in the first presidency is that the president of the church sometimes is alive, but not fully capable of being able to administer all the duties. And that's what we have right now with President Monson and the illness and the health that he's going through. And it says here in the manual that people throughout the church are naturally anxious to know of the president's condition. President Benson is now in his 95th year. He suffers seriously from the effects of age and illness and has been unable to fulfill important duties of his sacred office. This is not a situation without precedent. Other presidents of the church have also been ill or unable to function fully in the closing months or years of their lives. It is possible that this will happen again in the future, which we are in now. But he goes on in the section just to talk about how, the first presidency and the Council of the Quorum of 12 Apostles have all of the keys necessary to run the church. With the president there, even though he's not involved in the day-to-day, they still have all the keys and authority that they need to operate the church. The Quorum of the 12 and the First Presidency are all sustained as prophets, seers, and revelators.
That was also a part that stood out to me, and it was one that I actually dropped off my list. So I bet the Spirit was speaking just a little bit there. but as I was reviewing that part of the lesson, I thought how comforting that is. And the other thought that I had is how much our Heavenly Father in Jesus Christ love us to help us know that there's a plan in place. We don't have to worry about what's going to happen. There's a plan for how to handle these things. And we can be comfortable to know that there's a plan, that they know how to work together to overcome these things.
Yeah, the lesson even talks about how the 12, every decision they make is made in unanimity. There is no majority vote where if you've got 7, it goes and there's 5 disgruntled people. They always are unanimous, and that they come from different backgrounds. It isn't a rubber stamping process, and that some things take a lot of counsel. I just finished listening to Elder Ballard's Counseling with Your Counsels, and he talks about that a little bit, about how the 12 don't always see eye to eye up front, but after study and deliberation and prayer and fasting, they always come to the same conclusion. We've talked a lot about, the church, and of course we're so excited about General Conference, but the other half of this lesson talks about local leadership. I know that you've got kind of some personal experience there in your family.
I do. I'm a bishop's wife. So I love that part, and the frustrations of being a bishop's wife. And I think with any calling, there are things that we love about it that are real blessings in our lives, and things that we might find a little frustrating. I really, hang on, there was a quote that I pulled out, but it was under a different point that I brought out. But give me just a second, and I'll find it. I loved what he said about how bishops and branch presidents watch over their wards and their branches. And this was what he said: "None is forgotten, overlooked, or neglected. Jesus was the true shepherd who reached out to those in distress, one at a time, bestowing an individual blessing upon them." And I love that, and we have, I think all of us, we're here to help our, that President Hinckley brought up, which was that you can be more self-reliant and ask a little less of your bishop. And I loved that, because I see every day how much work it is for my husband to be a bishop. I see sometimes those days when he comes home tired, or he's worried about someone. I sit there in those moments when he'll come home from an appointment and say, "I asked so-and-so if I could share this with you." And then he will proceed to bring me into his confidence about a ward member who's struggling. And there's no doubt about it, bishops and branch presidents cannot do all of that reaching, uplifting, loving. They are relying on us to help be their hands, just kind of like when we talk about the statue of Jesus Christ that has no hands. We are Jesus Christ's hands, just like we can be the bishops or the branch president's hands. That's why we have ward councils. That's why we have auxiliaries. That's why we have elders quorums, high priest groups. We're there to work all together.
I remember when I was first called to an elders quorum presidency, and we were getting counsel from our stake president, and he gave the president of the quorum that same advice. He says, your responsibility is to take burdens off the bishop. There are certain things that only the bishop can do. Everything else, you should be doing everything in your power to take it off his plate. When it comes to elders that need counsel with them. If it's a worthiness issue, then pass it off to the bishop. But don't make the bishop have every single conversation. You have the authority and you have the keys to bless your elders and to counsel them.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's so much that we can do before we pass someone on to the bishop. And there are issues that absolutely, and I think any time in leadership, there are things that you can only do as the leader. And it's really good to delegate and let other people take those things off your plate that you don't absolutely have to do. You end up really exhausted if you don't share some of that burden with other people.
Yeah, we're having that same discussion with our Deacons Quorum president right now, trying to teach him how to delegate. Like, Don't own all of it. You've got 2 capable counselors. Give them responsibilities. Give them something to do, and let them own it and give it away. You can follow up, make sure they need it, they get it done, but don't feel like you have to do everything. Don't call it all the quorum. Give half it to one counselor, half to the other, and then make sure they do it. And so it's a hard process.
Oh, it is. And the other thought that I had about this is we all have unique talents, skills, and abilities. And, that maybe somebody else doesn't have. If we all are generous with sharing our talents and reaching out to people, there are people that I can reach that maybe my husband wouldn't connect with as well. I mean, because everybody is an individual. And so when we all pull together, we get so much more accomplished. For sure.
Well, Heather, tell us a little bit about what you have going on your site, LDSYouthLeadership.com.
Oh, you're going to love me because I'm about to get kind of serious and heavy here. We are at the end of Suicide Awareness Month, and this is a cause that is close to my heart. It means a great deal to me. I have had some ward members who struggled with feeling suicidal. I've had a ward member who has attempted suicide. And for a long time, this was something that I felt like I didn't have the knowledge to do very much about it. I was concerned about it. I cared, but I didn't feel like I really knew what to do. Well, I've had a couple of interesting opportunities come my way in the last week. So the first one, what that does is it doesn't teach you how to diagnose any kind of mental illness. The idea is that when someone is really struggling emotionally or mentally, they teach you how to intervene right then. You're like the first responder. You're kind of like an EMT. And so you're there to simply listen to them without judgment, find out how deep their trouble is, and help get them through it until you can get them to a mental health professional. But the second opportunity is Bonneville Communications. These are the guys who do the lovely Christmas and Easter social media campaigns.
Yeah, they bring General Conference to your home.
Brady and I both know them by name, but I know that they were looking for some of us who wanted to help with the suicide prevention campaign, and I volunteered. And so they had us partner up with the Utah, let me make sure I get this right. I get the name wrong every time because it's kind of long. The Utah Suicide Prevention Coalition. And so the campaign that they've been running all month long is about teen suicide prevention, specifically encouraging people to lock up their guns. And
important.
Yeah. The leading method of choice in the United States is by firearm when it comes to suicide. And so even though guns don't cause suicide, they're quite connected to it. And so I wrote up a post talking about this campaign, but also sharing what I learned about how to help someone when they're feeling suicidal and how to find out if and what kinds of questions.
Good. Well, over on This Mormon Life, this-mormon-life.com, we've got a super fun, this is kind of like the opposite. I feel bad because it's kind of a big knee-jerk reaction, like different. We've got a general conference packet that we partnered with Malia of Riley Street. Well, she made it, but I printed it and put some stuff there. So I just shared what I did for my kid, my 12-year-old deacon, and also my deacon's quorum. They had a great time with these. I made a Jeopardy board with quiz things. So if you have youth that you're trying to help them get more out of general conference, just check it out. We'll have notes to my post and Heather's post in the show notes of this episode. And we thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope that this helps you to get more out of your lesson. If you did, share it, talk about it. Let other people know that there's more help out there, because if If you're getting everything you need from the church resources, wonderful. But if you feel like you need more, that's what we're here for. So we'd love to get your feedback, and we've been loving the YouTube comments that we've been seeing. So on behalf of Heather, my name is Grady, and we wish you all a fond adieu.